Good evening, folks. This is Bill Breeden. Welcome to Constellation Tour number 42. Tonight we're going to talk about Orion the Hunter. And tonight marks the departure from the zodiacal constellation group. And we're going to be heading more towards the middle of the celestial sphere, that being the constellations along the celestial equator, and mixing in a few that are just below it in the south celestial hemisphere. So, and Orion the Hunter is probably the most well-known constellation in the entire sky. Maybe only surpassed by the Big Dipper, which isn't actually a constellation, it's an asterism. So as far as proper constellations go, I would say that Orion is probably the most well-known. Orion is fascinating in so many ways. It's hard to even touch on all the ways that it is fascinating, but I will try. I have Stellarium set up here for January the 14th, 2021 at about 8:30 in the evening with a 60-degree apparent field of view. I'm sorry, 60-degree actual field of view. I always do that, which simulates the view you get when you look up with the unaided eye, and also a view from suburban skies with moderate light pollution. So we're looking south, and I'm going to try to remember all the things that make Orion so fascinating. First of all, it's big and bright, and it's very easy to find. In fact, when you're looking for other constellations, the first instruction many times is find Orion, find Orion's Belt, find Betelgeuse, find Bellatrix, find Rigel. So Orion is a signpost itself. So we're looking at Orion's Belt right here. These three stars in a row, very dominant, can't be missed, easy to see. Orion is a winter time constellation, although it does begin to appear in October and November if you don't mind staying up way past midnight. If you want to see Orion at a normal time in the evening hours, you need to wait until December and into January and February. Orion, excuse me, Orion's still visible in March and April, although it is low in the west and setting. So let's talk about some other reasons why Orion is so amazing. The Orion's Belt here actually serves many purposes for guideposts. It serves as a pointer to several other stars in the sky. You can follow Orion's Belt upward in this direction to find Aldebaran in Taurus. You can follow Orion's Belt downward in this direction to find Sirius, which is the alpha star in Canis Major, and it's also the brightest star in the night sky. Orion's Belt, something else that's interesting about it is that if you look here, you'll see that the stars in Orion's Belt are approximately 1 degree from each other. So let's try to simulate that. This is Alnitak here, this is Alnilam, and this is Mintaka. And I've put Alnitak in the middle, and you can see that Alnilam here is just over 1 degree away. And then if we move Alnilam here to the middle, you'll see that Mintaka is just over 1 degree away. So let's go back to a naked eye view here. When you're looking at Orion's Belt, each star is about 1 degree from the next one. So it makes it, they're a little bit more than 1 degree apart, but it's close enough where you can, I don't know what I just did here. Let's see. That's what I wanted to do. Okay. When you're looking at Orion's Belt, you can get an idea of about how far 1 degree is by how far apart each star in the belt is. Another thing very interesting about Orion is that now I've put up the lines of right ascension and declination up here, and you can see this zero line right here that I'm pointing at with my arrow. You see that? That is the celestial equator. And you can see that Mintaka is almost touching it. So Orion's belt is almost smack dab in the middle of the celestial sphere, right on the celestial equator, which tells you what? That the upper half of Orion is in the northern celestial hemisphere, and the bottom half of Orion is in the southern celestial hemisphere. So it actually sort of gives you a guide to what the celestial sphere actually looks like different times of the night. So if you see Orion standing straight up, then you know that you're basically seeing both halves of the celestial sphere at the same time. And you can visualize where the equator is, going right here, just right along where Mintaka is, right about where my arrow is. So many reasons why Orion is fascinating. Also, with it being on the celestial equator, Orion is visible from most of the world. The people in the northern hemisphere see it the way we do here in St. Louis. The people in the southern hemisphere see Orion upside down. They will see Rigel up here, and they'll see Betelgeuse down here, and the belt will be this way. So and even from the North Pole, you would be able to see the northern half of Orion, and from the South Pole, you'd be able to see the southern half. So Orion is visible from the whole world. There are many reasons why Orion is fascinating. So let's take a look at the constellation lines. Orion is depicted as this hourglass shape here, with the belt here in the middle. And as far as the amount of sky that Orion occupies, it's all this area here within the red border. So let's go over the bright stars in Orion. I think everyone should know the names of them. This reddish star up here is called Betelgeuse, and it's magnitude 0.4, 0.4, one of the brightest stars in the night sky. The star next to Betelgeuse is Bellatrix, magnitude 1.6. This star down here, this bright one here, is called Rigel, and it is magnitude 0. And then down here you have Saiph, which is a second magnitude star. And then you have the three belt stars, which I think everyone should memorize: Alnitak, Alnilam, and Mintaka. They sort of roll off the tongue. Alnitak, Alnilam, Mintaka. Alnitak, Alnilam, Mintaka. And Alnitak is second magnitude. Alnilam is 1.6. And Mintaka is 2.4. So they're all right around second magnitude. So they're all about the same brightness. So there are several well-known deep sky objects in Orion, and let's see, are there any double stars? Theta 1 Orionis, or the trapezium, is probably the most well-known multiple star system in the entire night sky, and that can be seen right here, just below Orion's belt. And we're going to go ahead and zoom into that with the finder scope. Let's see, the finder scope is going to give you a field of view of about 6 degrees, so about there. And you're within the Great Orion Nebula, but Theta 1 Orionis and Theta 2 Orionis are double stars. So it's going to make me pick something here. So let's do a search here. Let's do Theta Orionis. I never use the go-to for this because you can see it naked eye. So let's just pick Theta 2 Orionis with Stellarium here, and then we can use our eyepiece view. So this here is a multiple star system, Theta 2 Orionis and Theta 1 Orionis are all clustered in here. Those are collectively known as the trapezium. And Stellarium doesn't really do it justice. It actually has the shape of a trapezoid, which is why it's called the trapezium. So Iota Orionis is also listed as a double star. Let's return to naked eye view here. And let's search for Iota Orionis. Oh, that's a nice one. I like that. But you've got actually a multiple star system here. These two together here constitute your double star. Well, let's have a look through the eyepiece. And yeah, you can see this one here splits. I'm not sure if this one does. Let's see if we can split that one manually. No, but the other one does. This one does right here. And let's see, that one's got a HIP catalog number associated with it. Okay, so let's put up the mythical figures. And you can see that Orion's belt here and his sword is hanging off of his belt, and the tip of his sword is the Great Orion Nebula. And see, Betelgeuse is his armpit, Bellatrix is his other armpit, and Rigel here is his foot, and Safe is his knee. So he's kneeling, and he's got this over his arm. I'm not sure what the purpose of that is. So, whoops, I need to do that. Okay. So let's travel to a dark site. Let's see what Orion looks like from a dark site. And oh my goodness, the mid-January sky is just chock with really bright stars. In fact, I think that's why people have the impression that the winter sky is clearer. And it can be, especially if you're comparing it to a hazy summer night. But winter skies aren't just automatically clearer. The reason people think that is because in the direction of Orion, there just are so many bright stars. I mean, you've got Betelgeuse and Bellatrix, you've got Rigel, you've got Safe. You follow Orion's belt this direction, you come to Sirius, and you sort of follow these two stars here, Bellatrix and Betelgeuse, over in this direction, and you have Procyon. I think that's Procyon. Yeah, Procyon. And you follow Orion's belt this way, and you come to Aldebaran in Taurus. So let me see if I can get it all in here. We might have to back up our field of view a little bit to see the whole thing. But this whole part of the winter sky is known as the winter hexagon. Now see if I can remember all the stars here that make up the hexagon. Aldebaran here in Taurus, Rigel here in Orion, Sirius in Canis Major, Procyon in Canis Minor, Pollux in Gemini, and Castor in Gemini. There's one more up there, and Capella in Auriga. So you have this huge hexagon shape, which is known as the winter hexagon. So with all of these bright stars all so close together, and this this part of the Milky Way here, it gives people the impression that the winter sky is clearer, when actually the truth is there's just more bright stars in that area of the sky. Okay, no tour of Orion would be complete without a visit to the Great Orion Nebula. So we don't even need to use the search. We can just go right to it here. But if we use the search, we can get some statistics on it. So let's do that. And through the finder, through a pair of binoculars, the Great Orion Nebula is nothing less than glorious. You can spend the whole evening with your telescope just admiring the intricacies and complexities of the Great Orion Nebula. It's listed at magnitude 4 at a distance of 1,340 light years from Earth. And the Orion Nebula is a place where stars are born. It's a nursery. And the most famous of newborn stars are the ones that make up the trapezium within the brightest part of the Orion Nebula. So the trapezium is actually in this glare right here where my arrow is. And Stellarium doesn't really do it justice. The Orion Nebula is one of the few objects in the sky that will look much better through your small backyard telescope than it does through this simulation. This is actually washed out. You'll see these wings here. You'll see this long tendril here of nebulosity. And the Orion Nebula looks great with just about any magnification. So you put less magnification on it, you'll see a greater area of it, and you put more magnification on it. And even though this doesn't really do it justice, this would be a really good view of the trapezium. So just about any magnification you put on the Great Orion Nebula will be satisfying. So that's M42. M43 is nearby. You can see the telescope here barely moved. Let's see. So M43 is actually this little knot here within the Orion Nebula, and it's called Orions Nebula, which I've never heard that name before. And since it's part of the whole Orion Nebula system, it's the same distance from us, 1,300 light years. Okay, let's go back out to a naked eye view. And the Orion Nebula is visible to the unaided eye. I mean, in this simulation here, you can see this fuzzy spot just below Orion's Belt, and that's the nebula. So the next object on the list to look for is M78, which is a diffuse nebula in Orion, and it's just above Alnitak here. And M78 is much fainter than the Great Orion Nebula. It's listed at magnitude 8 at a distance of 1,600 light years from Earth. So most of these nebula look better with lower power. So in general, when you're perusing and cruising around Orion, it's best to use low power. 24 millimeter eyepiece, 20 millimeter, anything in that range, give you the best view. So we're going to look at one more famous object within the boundaries of Orion, and that is the Horsehead Nebula. And I don't want to get your hopes up. This is a very difficult object to observe, but I think everyone should try it. And at a star party, if someone's offering views of the Horsehead Nebula through a large aperture telescope, and I mean 16 inches or better, take them up on it. NGC 1981. Now that's taken me somewhere else. I don't think that's... Oh, you know what? The Horsehead Nebula has a different catalog number, so this is something different. So let's take a look at NGC 1981 first. I had this on my list to look at, and I mistook it for the Horsehead, and it's not. So this one, this is the Kolkar cluster, Colander 73, at 4th magnitude. So it's easy to find. It's just above the Orion Nebula. And it's a nice little scattering of stars just on the sort of the outer upper edge of the Orion Nebula. Okay, so let's find the Horsehead Nebula. Since I said it, it seems like it's in this area here near Alnitak. So let's point our telescope at Alnitak itself and use the finder scope. Okay, you can see the Horsehead is right here within the field of view of this finder scope simply by pointing it at Alnitak. Okay, so let's center the Horsehead here and put some power on it. And I'm simulating here a field of view of about 3/4 of a degree, which would be a typical low power, low to medium low power eyepiece. It will not look like this with a telescope of less than 16 inches of aperture. And even then, it will appear a lot fainter than this. Some amateur astronomers will use filters to make it stand out more. But the Horsehead is certainly one of the most famous objects in the whole night sky. And it just happens to be in Orion. Okay, well, this concludes my tour of Orion the Hunter tonight. Good night and good seeing.